next we're going to replace the code that we completed in the last video with the ability to actually animate the door. So instead of deleting itself from the world, it simply retracts itself down into the floor, pauses for a second, and then retracts back up into the position that it's currently in. So I've actually removed the code already. If you go to our door that we had last on the last session, so get rid of the code that deletes the door because we're not actually going to need this. Instead, we're going to pull a strand from pressed, and we're going to say add timeline. We'll call this door movement. And instead of saying from play, we're going to say play from start. So hold control, pull the strand from play, and put it into from start. We're then going to double click this node. Now it'll bring us to the screen, which is our timeline. And we're going to add a float track. And to do this, we use this little F button up here. So click that, and we've got a float track. And we'll call this door movement as well. Now this works like any graph that you'd see in maths. So across the x-axis here, you've got time. So at 0.25 seconds here, 0.5 here, 1 here, 1.25, and so on and so on. And then up the y-axis, we've got how much we want the door to move. So let's start off by putting a point in here. So if we hold shift and click at around the 0.25 mark, you can see that a little small diamond point has been created here. Now up the top here, you can change the values manually. So I'm going to set that to 0.25 exactly, and I'm going to keep it at a value of 0 because 0 is where our door is currently sitting, and we can check that by checking our door mesh. So click on door mesh, its details will come up, and you can see in the location here that it's at 0 for all three. Now I want this to retract into the floor, so moving downwards. So I want to change the Z axis value. So I basically want to change this so it's in the minus range. And to do this, I'm going to actually go into the viewport and see whereabouts I want this to move down to. Now I'd like this to sit a little bit above the floor, so you can see that the door is still there, but it's retracted enough so that we can actually still walk over it. So let's pull that down. So about, I'm going to say about there. So if you look, it's still above the ground, but we can definitely walk over that. Now if you look at the value here, it's actually almost exactly minus 200. So I'm just going to say the value is minus 200. Now before inputting that, I'm going to just Control Z and put this door back in the position it was, because we don't actually want that changed. So I'm going to create a new point. Doesn't really matter where, I'm just going to create a new point. I'm going to set the time to, let's say 4 seconds. So 4 seconds. Now that point has disappeared from here. So we can just click on this button here, which is zoom to fit horizontal, and I'll stretch our graph so we can see all the points that we have. And I'm going to change the value to minus 200, which is what we looked at in the viewport. Same thing, it's gone very, very low down here, so I'm going to click on the zoom to, and you can see it's created this nice line for us. So over time, from about 0.25 seconds here, the door will slowly move down to minus 200 at around about 4 seconds, or exactly 4 seconds. So I'm going to compile that, I'm going to keep it there. So I can close down the timeline. I'm going to pull a strand from update, and we're going to type in set relative location. Now we're going to use the one for door mesh because that's where we want to move the actual door itself. So I'm going to click on that. The door mesh is selected here. Now the only thing we need to do for the set relative location is give it the information for where we'd like this door to move. Now we need to plug door movement in because this is the timeline, the float track that we just created. However, we can't just plug it into this yellow pin here. In Unreal, green pins must always go into green pins, yellow must always go into yellow, red always go into red, blue always must go into blue, and so on. It's basically the data type that you're trying to plug in. Now what we can do to make sure that we can plug our green into this is right click and split struct pin. Now instead of handling these values as one 3 vector coordinate, we can edit them individually. So we've got our X, Y, and Z. Now I said I want to move this door down into the floor, So I'm just going to plug that into the Z coordinate there. Let's give it a go. Compile, minimize, and let's have a look. So I'm going to press E, and there we go. The door moves slowly down, and it stops perfect, just above the floor. So you can still see the doors there, but you can definitely move in and access this door. Perfect. Let's go back. So now I'd like it to pause for a second and just move back up. Now there's a couple of ways you can do this. You could create a big timeline, so it pauses at the bottom and then you move up the same way. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just copy what we've done and play it in reverse. But first, before we do that, we're going to have to pull a strand from here and use a delay. So I know that the door is going to take 4 seconds, or about 4 seconds, to get to the bottom. So I'm going to leave it, let's say, 6 seconds. So that gives you 4 seconds for the door to sink to the floor, 2 seconds to walk in, and then the door will start coming back up. So I'm going to copy the door movement and pull it over here. I'm going to rename that to door movement 2. And I'm going to plug that into play from start again. And then we're going to copy set relative location, put it over here, plug that in, plug the door movement in, and plug our door mesh in from all the way over here. Oh, just want to remember there, actually, sorry, we're not going to play from start. I'm incorrect there. So hold control, pull that out, and I'm actually going to reverse from end, because we don't want to play from the start. We want to start at the very end and reverse it. So let's give that a go. So press E, door starts going down, the delay has already been triggered, so it's going to wait around about 2 seconds. Amazing, and then the door comes back up. If we go back up to it, press E, it'll restart the process again. However, there is a little bit of an issue. If I press E in the middle of this, it restarts and interjects its way through the process. So there you go, it's running 2 versions of itself at the same time, which is an issue. So we can change that quite easily. Let's go back to our blueprint. Now I'm going to highlight all this and move it up just a little bit. There you go. Now at the start, I'm going to pull a strand from pressed again, and I'm going to type in do once. Now what that basically means is, it's only going to allow you to do this once. So let's give it a go. Press E. Awesome. Now I'm going to press E over and over again, and it isn't resetting this door. It isn't pushing it back up to the starting position, which is good. However, that also means that now that the door is closed, I can't open it again. And if I didn't have this little roof access that I made earlier, I also wouldn't be able to get out, or now that I'm out, I can't get back in. So we can reset that do once when it's ready. So again, we know from the end of here, I'm going to put a delay. That door is going to take around about 4 seconds to come back up, so I'm going to delay 4 seconds. And from this delay, I'm going to pull a strand from completed, drag it all the way around so it's plugged into the reset there. Now, that's not very clear, so I'm going to pull some extra points here. Make it look a little bit nicer. You know what, that looks quite nice. Perfect. So now you can sort of see what's going on here. So, do once, so it'll only allow you to do it once. Moves the door into the floor, waits for the door, and waits for the person to be able to get through. Then moves the door back up, waits for the door to be in position, and then resets it. So once the door's gone through this cycle, you can then activate the door again. So let's have a look. Door starts opening. Let's go in and press an E, so I can't reset the door. There we go. Let's give it a go. Perfect. So then I can activate the door again without being able to interrupt the process. Awesome. Now, as a bit of a proof of concept and showing how important and valuable this animation, this timeline code that we've done is, I've created a little extra patio, an extra island with a version of the building on the other side. Now, if I play the game, we're unable to jump across that, although we are quite close. So I've created a bridge, a moving bridge. So let's go inside. Here we go. There we go. And here we go. So what I've basically got is 3 timelines. The first timeline is for this button. It'll slowly push in. Once the button's pushed in, 2 other timelines will control this bridge to connect in the middle, giving me a way to pass this gap. So let's give it a go. Button goes in. Timelines are activated. And there you go. The bridge goes across, giving us a way across this gap and into the building here. So that's using almost the exact same code, the same nodes that we used to open that door over the other side. The only difference is it's changing the axes on which it moves. So instead of moving on the Z axis, I believe these are just moving on the Y axis. So they move across rather than down. So although the code is the nodes, sorry, the timeline nodes are perfect for things like doors, they can be used for many different applications as well. Anything that moves can use a timeline to make this nice smooth animation. So before moving to the next step, I'm not asking you to make your own bridge. Just make sure you've got a working door that can move down and back up without being interrupted, that can be used multiple times after the door's gone through its sequence. If it hasn't, if your door isn't doing that, like always, go back through the video for me and make sure that you follow the steps exactly how I've done, and your door should work fine.